Ancient people predicted eclipses with nothing but stone and sky. These ancient calendar systems that predicted celestial cycles with precision form an incredible legacy of human ingenuity. By the end of this journey, you will understand how civilizations separated by oceans created timekeeping so advanced it rivals modern calculations. How did structures of stone track the sun's path with such accuracy, and what secret knowledge was lost to the ages? What does our own relationship with time owe to these forgotten sky watchers? That vast star-filled sky was not just a spectacle, it was the first clock. Long before any written records, the earliest sky watchers noticed something profound. The sun did not rise in the same spot every day. Over the course of a year, it traveled along the horizon, moving northward and southward in a slow, predictable dance. The point where it rose at the beginning of summer was different from its rising point at the start of winter. By marking these extreme northern and southern points, the solstices, and the two balanced center points, the equinoxes, they could define the year with remarkable accuracy. This was not an abstract exercise, it was a matter of survival. Knowing when the seasons were about to turn told a community when to plant their seeds, when to expect the rains, and when to harvest their crops. In the Fertile Crescent, the Sumerians organized their lives around a solar year. Meanwhile, along the Nile, the Egyptians noticed that the annual flooding of the river coincided almost perfectly with the heliacal rising of the star Sirius, just before the sun. This celestial event became the cornerstone of their civil calendar, a 365-day year that guided their agricultural and religious life for millennia. Others looked to the moon, its gentle phases offering a shorter, more intimate rhythm. The waxing and waning crescent, the full silver globe, these lunar cycles became the basis for calendars governing festivals, markets, and sacred ceremonies across the ancient world. This foundational work, this patient recording of sun and moon, was humanity's first step toward true precision. It proved that the cosmos was orderly, and that by watching closely, we could learn its language. High atop their pyramid observatories, Mayan astronomers tracked the heavens with an intensity that bordered on reverence. They were not merely watching stars, they were deciphering the breathing patterns of the universe itself. This cosmic observation gave rise to a calendar system of breathtaking complexity and even more breathtaking accuracy. Far from a single method of timekeeping, the Maya operated several interlocking cycles simultaneously, like a celestial clock with multiple, perfectly synchronized gears. The first of these was the 260-day sacred round, known as the Tzolk'in. This was not tied to any obvious solar or lunar cycle, but rather to a deeper, ritual rhythm that governed human affairs, sacred ceremonies, and the very identity of individuals. Interwoven with this was the Hob, a 365-day solar year that kept their agricultural calendar in step with the seasons. But the true genius of the Maya was how these two cycles meshed. The Tzolk'in and the Hob would align only once every 52 years, a period known as a calendar round, which marked an era of profound renewal and sometimes of deep anxiety. For events on a grander scale, they devised the long count, a linear calendar that counted the days from a mythical starting point, allowing them to plot history across thousands of years. Their precision was staggering. By observing the planet Venus, they calculated its 584-day cycle with an error of just 2 hours every 5 centuries. This mastery enabled them to predict eclipses and the movements of planets with a confidence that must have seemed like magic. Every aspect of life, from planting crops to crowning a king, was scheduled according to this intricate celestial machinery. The Maya saw time not as a straight line, but as a series of sacred, repeating patterns, a philosophy of cosmic order that would find echoes in the most unexpected places. Yet this cosmic philosophy found its most enduring expression not in the jungles of Mesoamerica, but in the sun-drenched sands of Egypt. There, timekeeping was woven directly into the lifeblood of the nation, the Nile River. Each year, the river would swell and flood its banks, depositing the rich, dark silt that made the desert bloom. And this life-giving event arrived with a celestial herald, the heliacal rising of the star Sirius. Just before the sun would lighten the dawn sky, Sirius would glitter briefly on the horizon, a signal that the waters were coming. This perfect alignment of earth and sky became the heartbeat of Egyptian civilization, a natural calendar that dictated the rhythm of planting, growth, and harvest for thousands of years. To formalize this cycle, Egyptian astronomers developed a solar calendar of 365 days, a revolutionary step in its simplicity and accuracy. They divided the year into 12 months, each containing 30 days, and then added 5 extra days at the year's end. These additional days were considered outside the regular year, a time for celebration and reverence. This calendar so closely matched the actual solar year that it became the administrative backbone of the kingdom, but their timekeeping did not stop at the setting of the sun. They divided the night itself into neat segments by observing 36 star groups, known as decans. Each decan would rise just before dawn for a period of 10 days, creating a celestial clock face that rotated throughout the year. You could literally tell the hour of the night by which group of stars was making its appearance. This profound understanding was then carved into the very landscape. The Great Pyramid of Giza was constructed with its sides almost perfectly aligned to the 4 cardinal directions, an engineering marvel that required precise astronomical knowledge. Certain temples were designed so that on the solstices or equinoxes, the rising sun would send a beam of light deep into their inner sanctuaries, illuminating statues of the gods. These were not just buildings, they were permanent stone calendars, synchronizing human ritual with the grand cycles of the cosmos. This solar-focused system, born from the Nile's reliable flood, would become a powerful model, its influence radiating across the Mediterranean and shaping how future cultures would think about measuring their days and seasons. While the Egyptians were building their solar calendar, another kind of celestial timekeeping was emerging far to the north, etched not on papyrus but into the very landscape. Across the rolling hills of what is now Britain and Ireland, Neolithic communities were raising circles and mounds of colossal stone, creating the world's first permanent observatories. At Stonehenge, during the deep chill of the winter solstice, people would gather in the dim pre-dawn light. Their breath misting in the cold air, they watched for a moment their ancestors had engineered for generations, the very first sliver of the rising sun piercing the horizon in perfect alignment with the outlying heelstone, flooding the sacred center with a golden light. This was not a coincidence, it was a calculated celestial event, a reassurance that the sun's journey south had ended and the return to warmer days was beginning. This same profound understanding is found at Newgrange in Ireland, a massive, intricately carved mound older than the pyramids. For a few precious minutes around the winter solstice, a narrow beam of sunlight travels down a long, specially constructed passageway to illuminate the inner chamber, a dramatic symbol of rebirth in the heart of the darkest time of year. Meanwhile, in France, the thousands of standing stones at Karnak stretch for miles, forming alignments that some researchers believe were used to track the complex cycles of the moon, perhaps even predicting eclipses. These megalithic structures were humanity's first stone clocks, built on a scale that required entire communities to cooperate over generations. the knowledge needed to align them so precisely with solar and lunar extremes suggests a long tradition of patient observation, a secret science passed down through oral traditions. These farmers and herders did not merely watch the sky, they built a working model of it on the earth, synchronizing their rituals, their harvests, and their very sense of time with the reliable heartbeat of the cosmos. Far from the silent stone circles in the bustling cities of Mesopotamia, a different kind of celestial science was being born, one etched not in rock but in wet clay. Babylonian astronomers were the supreme accountants of the sky, their meticulous records on thousands of tablets revealing a cosmos governed by mathematical law. They watched the moon with an unwavering gaze, noting every eclipse, every subtle shift in its path. Over generations of patient recording, a pattern emerged from the chaos, a cycle of approximately 18 years after which eclipses would repeat themselves. This was the Saros cycle, a celestial rhythm that gave them the power to peer into the future. To harness this knowledge, they engineered a brilliant lunisolar calendar, a system that masterfully reconciled the conflicting rhythms of the moon and sun. The lunar month is about 29.5 days, while the solar year is roughly 365.25. Left alone, these cycles quickly fall out of sync, with lunar months drifting through the seasons. The Babylonian solution was intercalation, the periodic insertion of an extra month into the year. By decree, they would add a 13th month when needed, a simple yet profound act of synchronization that kept their ritual and agricultural calendar in harmony with the sun. Their genius, however, did not stop at the calendar. They saw the heavens as a grand mathematical equation. Using arithmetic progressions, they could calculate the complex movements of planets with startling accuracy, predicting their positions and periods. It was the Babylonians who first divided the circle into 360 degrees, a convention born from their base 60 number system that we still use today. From them, we also inherited the 7-day week, each day dedicated to one of the 7 celestial bodies they observed moving against the fixed stars. This was the crucial turning point, the moment astronomy evolved from pure observation into a computational science. The Babylonian legacy is not one of massive monuments, but of the very framework we use to measure space and time itself, a testament to the power of numbers to unlock the secrets of the sky. While Babylonian astronomers were perfecting their mathematical predictions, a parallel tradition of celestial observation was flourishing on the other side of the world, one where the sky served as a direct line of communication between the emperor and the divine. In the heart of ancient China, astronomy was not merely a science, it was the foundation of statecraft itself. The emperor ruled by the mandate of heaven, a divine right to govern that was constantly being reviewed and confirmed by the cosmos itself. A stable, predictable sky reflected a virtuous ruler and a harmonious kingdom, but a sudden eclipse, a mysterious comet, or an unexpected planetary alignment was seen as a celestial warning, a sign that the emperor's virtue was wavering. This belief created an astronomical bureaucracy of immense importance. Imperial observatories, staffed by dedicated court astronomers, maintained a continuous, meticulous watch of the heavens. Every event was carefully recorded, for these scribes were essentially taking the minutes of a cosmic parliament. Their primary tool was the lunisolar calendar, a sophisticated system that, like the Babylonian model, reconciled the cycles of the moon and sun. But the Chinese developed a uniquely elegant feature known as the 24 solar terms. These were not arbitrary dates, they were precise points in the sun's apparent journey along the ecliptic, marking specific astronomical events like the solstices and equinoxes, but also finer seasonal shifts crucial for an agricultural society. There was the term for the awakening of insects, another for the time of grain rains, and one for the arrival of minor heat. This calendar told a farmer not just the month, but the exact phase of nature's cycle, dictating when to plant rice, when to harvest wheat, and when to prepare for the cold. Their observations were breathtakingly precise. By carefully tracking the complex motions of the moon, they could predict eclipses with remarkable accuracy, allowing the court to stage elaborate rituals to appease the heavens and reassure the public. The appearance of a comet, which they called a broom star, was seen as a celestial sweeping away of the old order, a portent of great change that would send political advisors into a frenzy of interpretation. This entire system was woven into a grand philosophical framework. The calendar integrated the concepts of yin and yang, the balancing forces of dark and light, and the 5 elements of wood, fire, earth, metal, and water. Each year, month, and even day was thought to be influenced by these cycles, creating a holistic vision where human affairs, the natural world, and the celestial realm were all interconnected threads in the same cosmic fabric. The emperor's astronomers were not just timekeepers, they were the translators of the universe's will, proving once again that the drive to understand the sky was as much about navigating human power as it was about tracking the stars. This vast cosmic vision found its most expansive form in the river valleys of ancient India. While other cultures measured time in centuries, Vedic scholars conceived of cycles that stretched across millions of years. They spoke of 4 great yugas or world ages, each with its own distinct spiritual character, from a golden age of truth to an age of conflict and decline, only for the entire cycle to begin again in an endless, rhythmic progression of creation and dissolution. This was time on a truly geological scale, a philosophical framework that dwarfed the lifespan of any single civilization. Yet this grand vision was grounded in breathtakingly precise, daily observation. Their calendar was not based on the shifting tropical year tied to the seasons, but on the sidereal year, measured against the fixed backdrop of distant stars. This created a system of remarkable long-term stability. To track the moon's swift journey, they mapped the sky into 27 lunar mansions known as nakshatras. Each night, the moon would lodge in a different celestial house, providing a detailed, poetic map of the heavens that guided everything from naming children to scheduling important events. This dual perspective, balancing immense cosmic cycles with minute daily motions, required profound mathematical genius. Ancient texts like the Surya Siddhanta calculated the length of the solar year, the cycles of the planets, and the timing of eclipses with an accuracy that stuns modern historians. They even described the relative sizes of the planets and their approximate distances from Earth, achievements born from centuries of relentless calculation. All of this intricate knowledge was woven into a practical tool for daily life, the Panchangam. This almanac integrates 5 essential elements of time. It considers the lunar day, the solar day, the moon's position in its mansion, a yogic period marking the sun and moon's combined motion, and a karana or half-lunar day. This 5-fold system created a multidimensional view of time, advising individuals on the most auspicious moments for any activity, from planting a field to beginning a journey. How do we even comprehend a system that could hold the concept of a 4-million-year cycle in one hand and the precise daily phase of the moon in the other? It reveals a culture that saw no separation between the cosmic and the personal, where the grand dance of the universe was intimately reflected in the rhythm of every single day. High in the thin air of the Andes, the Inca turned entire mountain ranges into their celestial observatory. Their astronomers watched the sun not against an empty horizon, but between carefully placed stone pillars erected on distant peaks. As the sun god Inti traveled along the crest of the world, its light would pass between these markers, signaling the arrival of critical turning points in the year. A solstice, an equinox, or a date to begin planting was announced not by a written record, but by a beam of light touching a specific sacred stone. This was a calendar carved from the landscape itself. At the heart of this system stood the Coricancha, the magnificent sun temple in the capital city of Cusco. Its walls were once sheathed in gold, and its windows and niches were precisely aligned so that during key solar events, the sunlight would illuminate specific golden idols or mark designated points on the floor. It was less a building and more a divine instrument, a machine for capturing the sun. Out in the sacred valleys, they carved Intihuatana stones, often called hitching posts of the sun. These intricate granite structures served as complex gnomons, their angles and shadows allowing priests to track the sun's changing altitude with incredible precision, determining the exact date for ceremonies and coordinating the agricultural cycle across a vast empire. Managing time in such a vertical world was a complex challenge. The Inca calendar was primarily built around 12 lunar months, but they knew the moon alone could not guide their farming. To keep their rituals in harmony with the solar year, they periodically inserted an extra month, a brilliant act of synchronization that prevented their festivals from drifting through the seasons. This lunisolar system was the administrative heartbeat of the empire, dictating when to plant potatoes at one altitude and when to harvest quinoa at another. The entire system was woven together by the Sec system, a breathtakingly organized web of sightlines that radiated out from the Coricancha temple like spokes on a wheel. These were not just physical paths, they were symbolic lines connecting hundreds of sacred shrines or huacas scattered across the hills surrounding Cusco. Each huaca served as a foresight for an astronomical event. On a specific day, an observer at the Coricancha would see the sun rise or set directly over a particular shrine, marking a festival or an agricultural deadline. This meant the city itself was a giant calendar, its sacred geography mirroring the orderly progression of time in the heavens. How do you manage an empire without a written language? You build your records into the land, using the sun and the mountains as your unchanging text. The Inca solution was a profound demonstration that to understand the cosmos, sometimes you do not need complex machinery. You just need to learn how to read the world that is already there. Out on the vast, open Pacific, the horizon was a calendar, and the stars were its moving numbers. For Polynesian navigators, the ocean was not a barrier but a pathway, and their ability to read the celestial sea was a form of timekeeping so dynamic it powered the greatest human migration in history. These master wayfinders embarked on voyages spanning thousands of miles with no instruments beyond their deep knowledge of the sky's rhythm. They did not use a calendar of stone or clay, but a living one, written in the positions of stars, the patterns of ocean swells, and the flight paths of birds. This was not just navigation, it was a complete integration of time and space. The annual journey of the sun was known, marking the seasons for planting and harvesting on their home islands. But for a voyage, the most critical map was the star compass, a mental construct that divided the entire horizon into 32 houses. Each direction was defined by the rising or setting point of a specific, bright star. As one star would dip below the western horizon, the navigator would know to turn his attention to the next one rising in the east, keeping his canoe on a true course through the night. This star path was their unchanging highway across the featureless ocean. Their timekeeping extended to the moon, whose phases governed not just the nights but also the tides and the behaviors of the fish and birds they relied on. They recognized the lunar mansions, the subtle nightly shifts in the moon's position against the backdrop of stars, which provided a precise count of the days within a month. A navigator knew that when the moon stood near a certain cluster, it was the time for a specific type of tuna to run, or for a particular seabird to begin its nesting migration, which in turn could lead him to land. This knowledge was a sacred trust passed through generations in songs and chants, memorizing the relationships between celestial bodies, ocean currents, and living creatures. How do you find a speck of an island in an ocean that covers a third of the planet? You learn to see time itself in the motion of the heavens, using the stars as your clock and the swells as your compass. This living calendar did more than mark the days. It sustained a culture of exploration that connected islands across a watery continent, proving that the most sophisticated system of time can be one that moves with you. Across the Mediterranean, a new kind of mind was at work on the same ancient puzzle. Greek thinkers looked at the wandering planets and saw not just gods but geometry. They sought to explain the cosmos not merely by observing its cycles, but by constructing perfect mathematical models to represent them. This was a revolution in thought, where the sky became a problem to be solved with compass and rule. In the 5th century before the Common Era, Meton of Athens made a crucial calculation. He realized that 19 solar years almost exactly equals 235 lunar months. This period, now known as the Metonic cycle, meant that after 19 years, the phases of the moon would fall on the same calendar dates. It was a master key for reconciling the stubborn mismatch between the sun-based year and the moon-based month, and it became the bedrock for lunisolar calendars across the ancient world. A century later, Calipus refined this system further. He saw that the Metonic cycle was not quite perfect, being off by about a day every 76 years. So he proposed a longer, more accurate cycle of 76 years, effectively quadrupling Meton's period and subtracting 1 day to correct the tiny drift. This relentless pursuit of precision defined the Greek approach. The greatest of these mathematical astronomers was Hipparchus. Through meticulous comparison of his own observations with records from Babylon, he stumbled upon one of the most profound discoveries in human history: the precession of the equinoxes. He found that the stars were not fixed in their positions forever, but that the entire celestial sphere was slowly shifting, causing the sun's location at the equinox to drift backward through the constellations over a vast cycle of about 26,000 years. This was a universe in motion on a scale previously unimagined. Hipparchus compiled the first known star catalogue, developed trigonometric tables to calculate the positions of celestial bodies, and created models for the sun and moon so accurate they could predict eclipses with new confidence. All of this geometrical and observational genius culminated in the work of Claudius Ptolemy. His great treatise, the Almagest, synthesized centuries of Greek astronomy into a single, comprehensive system. At its heart was a geometric model of the universe with Earth at the center. To explain the planet's occasional strange loops in the sky, he used a system of circles upon circles, known as epicycles and deferents. While not physically correct, this complex clockwork of orbits was a mathematical triumph, capable of predicting planetary positions with a degree of accuracy that would not be surpassed for over 1,000 years. This entire tradition, from Meton's cycles to Ptolemy's spheres, was driven by a deep philosophical belief that the universe was fundamentally rational and orderly, and that this order could be expressed through mathematics. Their work did more than just map the stars. It provided the essential framework for timekeeping that would shape calendars and navigation for centuries to come, proving that the language of the cosmos was written in the universal script of geometry. The Greek geometrical models were a stunning intellectual achievement, yet they soon reached their mathematical limits. A new revolution was brewing further east, one that would fuse observation with a powerful new kind of calculation. In the great observatories of the Islamic world, from Baghdad to Samarkand, astronomers were not just watching the sky, they were writing its instruction manual in the language of algebra and trigonometry. These scholars operated within a fascinating duality. For religious observance, they adhered to a purely lunar calendar, where months begin with the sighting of the crescent moon. This system, while spiritually central, naturally drifts through the solar seasons, but for the science of astronomy, they demanded absolute precision, developing mathematical techniques that could predict the cosmos with breathtaking accuracy. Their primary tools were the Zijs, comprehensive astronomical tables that represented centuries of collective knowledge. A single Zij could contain thousands of entries, detailing the movements of the sun, moon, and planets, along with instructions for calculating everything from the timing of an eclipse to the direction of prayer. To create these tables, they needed better data, and they built instruments of immense scale to get it. Massive marble sextants and giant quadrants, some so large you could walk along their calibrated arcs, allowed for observations of unparalleled sharpness. The mathematician Al-Batani, working in the 9th century, recalculated the length of the solar year with an error of only minutes, a figure that would stand unchallenged in Europe for centuries. He also produced remarkably accurate values for the precession of the equinoxes and the tilt of the Earth's axis. But raw data alone was not enough. The real breakthrough came with new mathematics. Islamic scholars perfected the science of trigonometry, developing the sine, cosine, and tangent functions we still use today. These were not abstract curiosities. They were the essential gears for a new celestial machinery, allowing astronomers to compute distances and angles in the sky with a clarity the Greeks never possessed. This fusion of math and observation reached its zenith in institutions like the Maraghe Observatory, and later the Grand Center built by the ruler astronomer Ulugh Beg in Samarkand. There, teams of scholars collaborated to produce star catalogues of such precision that they listed the positions of over 1,000 stars, their measurements often rivaling those made centuries later. How do you build a clock for the universe? You start by inventing a new mathematics to describe its motion. This legacy, carefully preserved and expanded, would eventually cross into Europe, providing the very tools that powered the Renaissance and our modern understanding of the cosmos. The quiet hum of a medieval monastery held a different kind of celestial science. In scriptoriums lit by candlelight, monks pored over complex tables, their quills scratching out calculations for a single, crucial date, Easter. This was the Computus, a sophisticated practice of reconciling the moon's cycles with the sun's year to determine this movable feast. Their challenge was immense. Easter is defined by the first Sunday after the first full moon following the spring equinox, a rule that entangled lunar and solar time in a knotty problem. A mistake of even a day could throw the entire liturgical year into disarray. So these scholarly monks became accidental astronomers, preserving and advancing the celestial knowledge of antiquity to serve their faith. Their intricate calculations ensured that the rhythm of prayer and celebration remained in harmony with the heavens above. Outside the monastery walls, a parallel calendar guided daily life. Farmers planting their fields did not consult complex lunar tables, but a calendar written in the land itself, marked by saints' days and weather lore. The feast of Saint Urban might signal the time to prune the vines, while the arrival of Saint Swithin's Day was watched closely for rain, its weather believed to foretell the next 40 days. This was a practical, earthy timekeeping, where the celestial was felt in the turn of the seasons and the growth of crops. For centuries, Europe relied on the old Julian calendar, but a tiny error in its leap year rule had accumulated over time. By the late 1500s, the calendar had drifted 10 full days ahead of the astronomical seasons. The spring equinox was falling on March 11th instead of the 21st, a disconnect that troubled both church and scholars. The solution was the Gregorian reform of 1582, a bold correction decreed by Pope Gregory XIII. 10 days were simply skipped to realign the calendar with the sun, and a new, more precise rule for leap years was instituted, one that omitted leap days in century years not divisible by 400. This fix was a monumental achievement in administrative astronomy, seamlessly blending celestial precision with the needs of a continent. It was the final, crucial refinement of an ancient quest, proving that the human need to track time accurately could bridge the sacred space between the monastery's calculations and the farmer's field. Far to the south, under the brilliant expanse of the Southern Cross, time was measured not by stone monuments but by the land itself speaking through the stars. For the many indigenous cultures of Australia, the sky was a vast storybook, and each chapter was read in the behavior of animals, the flowering of plants, and the shimmering of specific star clusters. This was ecological astronomy, a calendar system woven so tightly into the fabric of the local environment that you could not separate the celestial from the terrestrial. An elder did not just see the Pleiades rising at dawn, they felt the crispness in the air and knew that the winter season had arrived, a time for certain animals to be hunted and for specific roots to be gathered. Other star patterns, like the emu in the sky outlined by the dark dust lanes of the Milky Way, signaled when the real emus on the ground were laying their eggs, a crucial food source for the community. This knowledge was not kept in written almanacs but was carried across generations through songlines, intricate oral maps that wove navigation, history, law, and astronomy into a single, memorized narrative. A songline was a living calendar where the lyrics described the landscape you would traverse and the celestial events you would witness at different times of year, all while recounting the journeys of ancestral beings. This system created a multidimensional understanding of time, one that integrated the lunar cycles with the solar seasons and a rich tapestry of ecological indicators. The timing of a ceremony might be set by the phase of the moon, but its deeper meaning was confirmed by the blooming of a particular flower or the arrival of a specific bird. How do you build a calendar that lasts for tens of thousands of years? You listen to the world and you learn its rhythms by heart. This holistic vision reveals a profound truth, that the most precise calendar is not necessarily the one that measures the sky with the smallest error, but the one that most perfectly synchronizes human life with the intricate, living clock of the earth. The same celestial patterns observed from Greece and India were being mapped with equal brilliance under the vast African sky. In the lands of the Dogon people in Mali, oral traditions preserved a celestial mystery that would confound modern astronomers. Their stories described Sirius, the brightest star in our sky, as part of a binary system, and they spoke of a tiny, incredibly dense companion star they called Potolo. They knew this invisible star completed an elliptical orbit around Sirius every 50 years, a fact that was not confirmed by Western science until the invention of powerful telescopes centuries later. This was not an isolated phenomenon. Across the continent, from the Nile to the highlands of Ethiopia, civilizations were engineering calendars of profound sophistication. The Egyptian civil calendar, with its unwavering 365-day year, provided a stable backbone for their society. Further south, the Ethiopian calendar refined this system, creating a unique structure of 13 months that beautifully reconciled solar and lunar cycles, a system still in use today. This deep knowledge was always practical. The rising of the star cluster known as the Pleiades before dawn signaled the coming of the rainy season for countless agricultural communities, dictating the perfect moment to sow seeds. The movements of Venus and Jupiter were woven into the fabric of royal ceremonies and the founding of cities, linking the destiny of kingdoms to the predictable rhythm of the planets. We can see the roots of this genius in the stark desert landscape of Nabta Playa. Here, over 7,000 years ago, a people arranged a series of large stones into a circle and aligned them with the summer solstice sunrise and the bright stars of Orion's belt. This was more than a simple marker. It was a sophisticated observatory, a permanent stone calendar that tracked the slow precession of the equinoxes across generations. How did they achieve such precision with what we would consider primitive tools? They possessed a secret we are still unraveling, a patient, generational knowledge that saw the sky not as a distant mystery, but as a living, breathing guide to life on Earth. While the Greeks perfected geometry and the Polynesians memorized star paths, another culture was mastering time under a far more unforgiving sky. In the deep fjords and long winters of Scandinavia, survival depended on reading subtle celestial clues. Norse navigators faced a unique challenge. The sun could vanish for days behind a solid gray overcast, yet they still managed to sail across the treacherous North Atlantic. Their secret weapon may have been the sunstone, a crystal of calcite or cordierite that could polarize light, revealing the sun's position even through dense cloud cover. This was celestial wayfinding pushed to its absolute limit. Back on land, their calendar system reflected the same pragmatic ingenuity, a lunisolar structure perfectly adapted to an environment of extreme contrast. They did not recognize 4 gentle seasons but 2 powerful halves of the year, summer and winter, each beginning with a major gathering, the All-Thing, where laws were declared and time itself was officially measured. Their months were not abstract names but direct reflections of the world around them. There was the month of planting, the month of haymaking, and the harsh month of slaughter when animals were culled before winter. This was timekeeping woven directly into the fabric of subsistence. To track the complex interplay of the moon and sun, they used simple yet brilliant tools like calendar sticks. These were lengths of wood or bone etched with a series of runes or notches, each mark representing a day. Special symbols denoted the phases of the moon, the solstices, and the equinoxes, allowing a farmer to count down to the critical turning points of the year. By observing the sun's dramatic journey along the horizon, from the endless twilight of midwinter to the midnight sun of midsummer, they could pinpoint these solar events with remarkable accuracy. Their entire calendar was an act of synchronization, ensuring that the lunar months, which governed their rituals and legal meetings, did not drift too far from the solar year, which dictated their very survival. How do you build a society at the edge of the habitable world? You learn to read the faintest whisper of light in the sky, and you carve its rhythm into a stick you can hold in your hand. This was not a quest for abstract knowledge, but a deeply practical science, proving that the human need to measure time could flourish even under the dimmest sun. Yet even the most advanced Greek theories would soon find their ultimate physical form. In the quiet depths of the Aegean Sea, a lump of corroded bronze rested for 2,000 years, its secrets hidden by a crust of marine growth. When it was finally recovered from an ancient shipwreck in the early 20th century, no one could have guessed it was the most sophisticated scientific instrument of the ancient world. This is the Antikythera Mechanism, a device so complex it has been called the world's first analog computer. Its intricate assembly of at least 30 interlocking bronze gears was housed in a wooden case no larger than a shoebox. On the front, a single hand turned, driven by a precise crank, while a series of dials and pointers danced in a synchronized celestial ballet. This was not a model of the universe in the abstract. It was a working, mechanical simulation of the cosmos itself. Primary dial tracked the Egyptian calendar year. while a separate pointer displayed the phases of the moon, showing a tiny, silvery orb that shifted between black and white to represent the lunar cycle. Another gear train calculated the position of the sun in the zodiac, and astonishingly, it even accounted for the moon's slightly elliptical orbit, slowing down and speeding up its pointer to mimic the subtle variations in the moon's actual speed across the sky. This feature, known as lunar anomaly, required a brilliant piece of engineering called a pin and slot device, a differential gear that introduced a regular wobble into the moon's motion. The machine could predict eclipses with remarkable accuracy, not just when they would occur, but their timing, duration, and even their color, which ancient thinkers associated with portents. On the back, a large spiral dial charted the 4-year cycle of the Pan-Hellenic Games, including the Olympic Games, linking the rhythm of human competition directly to the celestial clockwork. Turning the handle was like winding forward the fabric of time itself, watching the future positions of planets and the timing of cosmic events unfold before your eyes. The existence of this device shatters our traditional view of ancient technology. It proves that Greek astronomical knowledge was not confined to parchment and geometry, but was translated into a precise, tangible machine. This was the ultimate bridge between abstract theory and practical computation, a physical manifestation of the Greek belief in a cosmos governed by mathematical law. The Antikythera Mechanism stands as a solitary, stunning relic of a technological peak that was lost for centuries, a whisper from the past reminding us that the drive to model the heavens is as old as civilization itself. But even the most precisely crafted calendar faces a relentless enemy, the slow and silent drift of cosmic time. Picture the growing confusion in a medieval European town where the spring equinox, the official start of the season, was now falling on a calendar date called March 11th. The world felt out of sync because the human measure of days had gradually decoupled from the astronomical reality. The old Julian calendar, for all its brilliance, contained a tiny, almost imperceptible flaw. Its leap year system overestimated the solar year by about 11 minutes. Those minutes accumulated day by day, year by year, until over 16 centuries, they added up to a full 10 days of error. Spring was arriving, but the calendar insisted it was still deep winter. This was not just an administrative headache, it disrupted the entire liturgical schedule, moving the sacred date of Easter further from its intended alignment with the spring equinox. The solution arrived in 1582, a monumental act of synchronization decreed by Pope Gregory XIII. To wrench the calendar back into alignment with the heavens, 10 days were simply erased. People went to sleep on the 4th of October and woke up the next morning on the 15th. This Gregorian reform was a stunningly pragmatic fix, but it also introduced a more sophisticated leap year rule to prevent the drift from happening again. Now, century years, those ending in 00, would only be leap years if they were divisible by 400. The year 2000 was a leap year, but the year 1900 was not. This small adjustment brought the calendar year into near-perfect harmony with the tropical year. Yet this was not the first time humanity had attempted such a correction. Centuries earlier, the Alexandrian calendar, developed in ancient Egypt, offered another elegant solution to the same problem by incorporating a leap day every 4 years, a system that likely influenced Julius Caesar himself. And throughout the Middle Ages, scholars in monasteries and universities proposed various reforms, all aimed at solving the Computus, the complex calculation of Easter, which required a perfect reconciliation of lunar and solar cycles. Each of these reforms demanded something profound, a deep and precise understanding of the solar year's true length, measured not by the counting of days, but by the patient observation of the sun's journey against the fixed stars. They had to calculate the exact moment the sun crossed the celestial equator, a moment that defines the equinox. This ongoing challenge reveals a beautiful paradox. Our ancient astronomers achieved a level of precision that still inspires awe, yet they also uncovered an inherent limitation. Any fixed system carved into stone or inked onto parchment will eventually need correction when tracking the infinite, subtle rhythms of the cosmos. A farmer stands in a field at dawn, his eyes fixed not on the soil but on the eastern horizon. He is waiting for a star, one that has been absent for months, to make its first brief appearance just before the sun washes it from the sky. This moment, the heliacal rising, was his almanac. It told him the soil was warm enough, the rains were near, and it was time to plant. This was not astronomy for its own sake. It was a direct conversation with the cosmos, where the turning of the heavens whispered the secrets of life and death for the coming season. In Egypt, that star was Sirius. Its glittering return signaled the imminent, life-giving flood of the Nile, an event so reliable it became the very heartbeat of their civilization. But this practice was universal. On the other side of the world, the Maya and the Aztecs watched for the Pleiades cluster. When it first became visible at a certain altitude in the pre-dawn sky, they knew the rainy season was about to begin, and it was time to sow the maize that would sustain their people. Greek farmers, too, used the Pleiades, with the poet Hesiod writing that its rising marked the start of the sailing and planting season, while its setting in autumn signaled the time for harvest. These were not vague associations, they were precise, repeatable, and absolutely critical. The entire agricultural year was a complex dance choreographed by the sky. The solar year defined the broad seasons of growth and dormancy. The lunar cycles, with their clear, visual phases, often dictated the schedule for irrigation, weeding, and the harvesting of specific crops that were best gathered under a full or a new moon. And woven through it all were the fixed stars, whose predictable returns provided the fine-tuned calendar points that solar and lunar observations alone could not offer. This practical necessity, the need to feed a community, was the relentless engine behind the drive for ever greater accuracy. A miscalculation could mean a failed harvest, hardship, and the struggle of an entire population. This was the ultimate motivation for perfecting the calendar, creating an unbreakable bond between the movement of the stars and the survival of humanity itself. These structures were not merely places of worship, they were functional observatories in stone. A Mayan pyramid at Chichen Itza transforms into a serpent of light and shadow during the equinoxes, as the sun's angled rays create a pattern of triangles that slithers down the grand staircase to meet a stone serpent's head at the base. This was not an accidental effect, it was a calculated celestial event witnessed by the entire community, a public announcement of the sun's balanced passage. Across the ocean, the great temple of Karnak in Egypt was engineered so that the rising sun on the winter solstice would send a beam of light traveling down its dark, columned axis, illuminating the inner sanctuary where the statue of the god Amun-Ra resided. For a few moments, the divine was made manifest by the sun's precise alignment, a moment of profound ritual significance made possible by architectural genius. In the dense fog of the Andes, the Intihuatana stone at Machu Picchu, often called the hitching post of the sun, stands as a masterpiece of this craft. Its multifaceted angles cast distinct shadows at different times of the year, allowing priests to read the sun's changing altitude with the precision of a modern instrument, determining the exact dates for planting and harvest across the empire's steep terraces. Perhaps one of the most dramatic examples is found in the ancient Irish tomb of Newgrange. A single, narrow roof box was constructed above the entrance, a slit so perfectly aligned that only for a few minutes around the winter solstice sunrise does a slender beam of light penetrate the 60-foot-long passage to flood the central burial chamber with golden light. This was a symbol of rebirth engineered into the architecture, a promise that the darkest days would end, witnessed by a privileged few deep within the earth. How do you make a calendar that lasts for millennia? You build it from stone, aligning its doorways and pillars so precisely that the sun itself becomes the only moving part. These architectural calendars transformed abstract astronomical knowledge into a shared, visceral experience, uniting the community with the cosmos in a single, breathtaking moment of light. The cosmos does not run on a simple clock, and this was the great mathematical challenge facing every ancient astronomer. To create a calendar that remained true for generations, they had to find the hidden harmony between celestial cycles that refused to sync up neatly. The lunar month and the solar year are a perfect example of this cosmic dissonance. 12 lunar months fall about 11 days short of a full solar year, causing any lunar-based calendar to rapidly drift through the seasons. The solution was not in counting single cycles, but in discovering the grand, overarching rhythms where the sun and moon finally found common ground. A Greek astronomer named Meton made a stunning calculation in the 5th century before the Common Era. He realized that 19 solar years and 235 lunar months are almost exactly the same length of time. This metonic cycle became a master key for calendar makers, a period after which the phases of the moon would return to the same calendar dates. It was a brilliant act of synchronization that formed the backbone of lunisolar calendars from Athens to Babylon. The Babylonians, however, were the true masters of celestial computation. Through generations of meticulous record-keeping, they identified another crucial pattern, the Saros cycle. They saw that every 18 years, eclipses would repeat in a similar sequence, a rhythm that gave them the power to predict these awe-inspiring events long before they darkened the sky. Their methods went far beyond simple observation. They employed arithmetic progressions, calculating the changing speed of planets with step-by-step numerical sequences that could forecast a planet's position with remarkable accuracy. This was the birth of predictive mathematical astronomy. Far to the east, Indian scholars were developing their own sophisticated tools. They perfected early forms of trigonometry, creating the sine function and other relational tools to map the triangles in the sky, calculating the distances and movements of celestial bodies with a geometric precision that echoed their vast philosophical concepts of time. How do you force the messy, real movements of the heavens into a reliable human system? You find the hidden mathematical music in the noise. The discovery of these grand cycles allowed priests and astronomers to build calendars that were not just records of the past, but accurate maps of the future, reconciling the incommensurate periods of the sun, moon, and planets into a single, enduring system of time. Every calendar ever created tells a story far deeper than the simple counting of days. It reveals a civilization's most fundamental beliefs about the nature of existence itself. For the Maya, their long count calendar was not a tool for scheduling, but a grand narrative of cosmic time, charting vast cycles of creation and destruction that unfolded over millennia. This was a universe of recurring eras where the end of one cycle promised the rebirth of the next, a philosophy that infused their rituals with profound meaning. Across the world, Chinese astronomers wove their celestial observations into a tapestry of philosophical balance. Their calendar integrated the constant interplay of yin and yang, the opposing yet complementary forces of dark and light, and the 5 elements of wood, fire, earth, metal, and water. An eclipse was not merely an astronomical event, it was a temporary disruption in cosmic harmony, a sign that the emperor needed to realign his rule with the virtue of heaven. This system saw the universe as a single, interconnected organism, where human conduct and celestial motion were inextricably linked. In the river valleys of India, Vedic scholars contemplated time on a scale that is almost incomprehensible. They conceived of the yugas, immense world ages that cycled from a golden age of truth to an age of conflict, spanning millions of years before the entire cosmic order dissolved and began anew. This was not time as a straight line progressing toward an end, but as a divine, rhythmic breath, an endless repetition of creation and dissolution that gave human life a specific, if fleeting, context. Meanwhile, under the brilliant stars of the Australian continent, time was mapped through the dream time, the sacred era of creation. Here, celestial events were not separate from the land, but were continuous with it. The rising of the Pleiades at a certain time of year was intrinsically connected to the emergence of a particular insect or the flowering of a specific plant. The sky was a living storybook, and the calendar was sung through generations in songlines that wove astronomy, navigation, and law into a single, unbroken narrative of belonging. Each of these frameworks asked a different question of the cosmos. One culture sought to predict the end of an age, while another worked to maintain balance in the present. One measured epochs in millions of years, and another found its cycle in the annual bloom of a desert flower. This stunning diversity proves that the human drive to track celestial cycles was about more than prediction. It was our deepest attempt to find our place within the great, unfolding story of the universe. A lone star map drawn on silk in one empire could find itself copied onto papyrus a continent away, its celestial knowledge traveling not in a straight line, but along the winding paths of merchants, soldiers, and scholars. The flow of astronomical ideas between ancient cultures was a slow, silent river of discovery, with each civilization adding its own unique current. Greek geometrical models, born from a passion for perfect shapes, eventually flowed eastward, where Indian astronomers absorbed their mathematical power and then expanded it, creating their own precise systems for calculating planetary motion. This enriched knowledge was then carried further into the heart of the Islamic world, where it was preserved, tested, and refined in great observatories. Centuries later, these very texts would cross into medieval Europe, translated from Arabic into Latin, providing the foundational spark for the scientific Renaissance. This was not a one-way street. Babylonian clay tablets, filled with centuries of eclipse observations and calendar rules, spread westward across the Mediterranean, informing Greek and later Roman timekeeping. Meanwhile, the sophisticated astronomical bureaucracy of China transmitted its methods and its calendar systems to the courts of Korea and Japan, creating a shared East Asian tradition of celestial prediction. A single concept like the Metonic cycle for reconciling sun and moon could appear independently in different lands, but its refinement was often accelerated when it was shared. A technique for predicting a planet's path developed in one culture could be combined with a stargazing tradition from another, creating a hybrid system more powerful than either one alone. This cross-fertilization of ideas meant that calendars did not evolve in isolation. They grew more sophisticated as they traveled, absorbing the strengths of each culture they touched. The human quest to understand the sky was a collaborative project spanning thousands of years and countless minds, a testament to our shared desire to find order in the cosmos. This grand exchange raises a profound question. How much of our modern timekeeping is a patchwork of ancient discoveries, stitched together across continents and generations? That 7-day rhythm you live by, that familiar cycle of work and rest, is a direct inheritance from Babylonian sky watchers. They dedicated each day to one of the 7 celestial bodies they saw moving against the stars, a tradition so powerful it was adopted across empires and persists in our calendars today. This is just one thread in a vast tapestry. The very geometry we use to map the sky, dividing a circle into 360 degrees, comes from the same Babylonian base 60 mathematics that powered their eclipse predictions. Our modern Gregorian calendar, the global standard for civil life, is the culmination of this ancient collaboration. It carries the legacy of the Egyptian solar year, the Greek astronomical corrections, and the Roman administrative reform, all refined through the Gregorian leap year rule to achieve its remarkable precision. But the influence runs even deeper. When scientists today study the long-term slowing of Earth's rotation, they turn to a unique data set, the eclipse records meticulously kept by Babylonian and Chinese astronomers. Those ancient observations of darkened skies provide the baseline measurements that allow us to detect a tiny but steady change in the length of our day over millennia. Every time you glance at a calendar or check the time, you are interacting with a system built by countless generations of observers. The farmer watching for Sirius over the Nile, the priest tracking Venus from a Mayan pyramid, the scholar calculating the metonic cycle in a Greek library, they all contributed a piece to the puzzle. Our contemporary timekeeping is not a clean break from the past, but a living museum of celestial knowledge, a continuous project that began when the first human looked up at the night sky and saw not just random lights, but a clock of incredible complexity and beauty. These ancient achievements confront us with a profound and lingering question. How did cultures separated by vast oceans and millennia achieve a precision that, in some cases, seems to brush against the limits of their known technology? The Maya calculated the 584-day cycle of Venus with an error of merely 2 hours over 5 centuries. Such a feat required observations maintained with unwavering dedication across generations, a continuity of purpose that challenges our modern, short-term perspective. Then there are the silent stones, the megalithic arrangements at sites like Karnak in France or the Nabta Playa Circle in the Sahara display alignments to lunar extremes and solstice sunrises that are accurate to a fraction of a degree. The engineering patience needed to erect these massive calendars is one thing, but the conceptual leap to envision such long-term cycles is another mystery entirely. Perhaps the most stunning artifact is the Antikythera Mechanism. This intricate assembly of bronze gears, with its differential turntable accounting for the moon's variable speed, represents a level of mechanical engineering thought to be millennia away. Its very existence suggests a lost lineage of technical craftsmanship, a school of thought whose other works have simply vanished into time. Some ancient records of eclipses are so precise that researchers debate whether they were true predictions or later additions. Yet if they were predictions, they hint at computational methods we have not yet rediscovered. Even the purposes of certain alignments remain just out of reach. A temple window might frame the rising of a specific star, but the reason for that star's particular significance, the story it told to the people who built it, is often lost to us. These are not simply gaps in our historical record. They are reminders of the fragility of knowledge itself. They suggest that our current understanding of the ancient sky watchers may be incomplete, that they perhaps possessed a different kind of science, one woven from meticulous observation, oral tradition, and a unique philosophical view of a living, interconnected cosmos. What other techniques or perspectives enabled this remarkable precision, and what secrets might still be hidden in plain sight, waiting for us to learn how to see them again? Side by side, the calendars of the Maya, Babylonians, and Chinese reveal a stunning truth. These systems, born in isolation, kept finding the same celestial rhythms. It is as if the universe was whispering the same mathematical secret to anyone patient enough to listen. Across the globe, from the observatories of Mesopotamia to the temples of Central America, astronomers independently discovered the power of the 19-year Metonic cycle, that elegant period where solar years and lunar months finally find common ground. They also universally faced the same core problem, the stubborn mismatch between the moon's phases and the sun's journey, and they arrived at a remarkably similar solution: intercalation. Whether it was the Babylonians inserting an extra month or the Romans adding a handful of days, the act of periodically correcting the calendar was a global recognition of a shared cosmic challenge. This was not coincidence, it was a logical conclusion drawn from relentless observation of the same sky. Yet for all these universal patterns, the cultural expressions were profoundly distinct. The Maya conceived of time on a scale of millennia with their long count, while the Babylonian focus remained on the precise, predictable cycles governing their city-states. The Chinese integrated their calendar with a philosophical system of elemental balance, seeing celestial events as direct commentary on imperial virtue. The starting point for each calendar was also deeply personal, anchored in a foundational local event, from the mythical creation of the world to the crowning of a specific king or the flooding of a sacred river. This comparative view reveals a beautiful duality in the human spirit. We are unified by a common drive to decode the universe, to find order in the heavens above. But we are also beautifully diverse, weaving that celestial order into the unique fabric of our own worldviews, environments, and stories. The shared mathematics points to a single, objective reality, while the cultural differences celebrate the many ways we find meaning